While it and hashtag 039, it's possible that the markets are reading it wrong. I Don and hashtag 039, he think that this is going to be the level we see in a few months. Yields are currently very high, more than a year and hashtag 039's worth. And I think that and hashtag 039's more important because, in the end, if yields start to fall because inflation is easing or the job market is a little weaker than expected, it really brings the Fed back into focus. I guess what I and hashtag 039d say is, being here, where returns are, is not nice. I Don and hashtag 039t think it really changes the markets, but I also Don and hashtag 039 he think yields will go up over the next few months. Well, some might say it and hashtag 039's especially uncomfortable for small caps. Around this time last year, you made a big guess about how much small caps could go up. Since then, you and hashtag 039v become more stable. But where do you think small caps are going now? What went wrong with the big pop you were hoping for on 24? It and hashtag 039's true that small caps have been let down. That is, I believe those names have been pulled under the rug a few times. That and hashtag 039's why I think buyers will be very careful. But for us, I think the roadmap for 2025 still shows that stocks will have a lot more chances to grow. This is because we are getting a new government that is pro-business, which will boost CEO confidence. It and hashtag 039's pretty clear now, I even saw it in the last two ISM reports. That will be a better place for deals, though. So, while small caps have been big losers for the last 10 years, I think this 10-year underperformance by the S&P wink with tongue sticking out is the worst in almost 100 years. That makes it the second only to 1998. Another thing is that small caps are still much more attractively priced. The median PE is about 11 times, which is almost 7.7 times less than the S&P wink with tongue sticking out. Okay. John, it and hashtag 039's been hard to have too many small caps, but I think they and hashtag 039 work in 2025, okay. I would like to know what you think about some of the riskier investments or parts of the market that are, let and hashtag 039's use the word, maybe more speculative. In this case, the quantum computer stocks went up a huge amount. Yesterday, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA came out and said that, some of the supercomputers are still up and running, and the full. I guess supercomputers won and hashtag 039 be useful for many years yet, because all the prices are going down. I know you like one of these granny shots. I think it and hashtag 039's Ion Q. I and hashtag 039, do like to know what you think about what we and hashtag 039v seen in these parts of the market and how you would go about buying, if you should, in some of these more speculative or cutting-edge tech companies. A lot of these big ideas do need to be looked at through the lens of the long term, in my opinion. I believe that quantum computing is still very new. No one can really say if it and hashtag 039's 15 years or 15 months away. And I think a lot of people have been wrong over the past 20 years when they looked at things like social media and didn't and hashtag 039 realize how quickly it was used, as well as the internet and even AI now. Just think about how many people said 2 years ago that AI would take a lot longer than was thought. At the same time, I believe that the last 3 weeks have not been good for stocks. People seem to think that we and hashtag 039 getting close to a top or that stocks are just terrible right now because of this. I believe that we are almost at the point where you should really bet against that. I mean, even AI opinion is almost back to being negative. Morgan, though, quantum technology in particular is a pretty cool one. I think these names will change a lot. They will be harder to own until we get back to risk on, but I Don and hashtag 039 think that means you have to set them out in 2025. Look at how the NVIDIA price is moving today as a starting point. Last night, there was a lot of hope around CES and Jensen Huang and hashtag 039's speech. Now we have a repeat. What does that mean to you? That and hashtag 039's a good question. I try not to think about it too much. Remember that this stock has been going through a crazy amount of trouble. It and hashtag 039's really gone up. NVIDIA could have a 3 to 4% down day, which ISN and hashtag 039t completely out of the blue. It does take place. But I think a lot of people go because they know Jensen Huang is going to give the main speech. I think we can all agree that they are looking forward to being amazed by the technology. You definitely made a big impression, but then you and hashtag 039, re-like, end quote, okay, the trade and hashtag 039's over. Let me get out of this. I made what I made, end quote, this takes place a lot. This is based on reports, spread the news. That and hashtag 039's all I have to say about it. Okay, let and hashtag 039's talk about something else if you say this is the start of the next 20% drop in NVIDIA. Idon and hashtag 039t think that kind of weakness can be extrapolated into something like that. But you know what I find interesting? As a way to start the show, I almost asked you if you thought this was the next 20% rise for the stock. Because you know that what happened at CES was important. For a while now, the stock hadn't and hashtag 039t really done anything. It and hashtag 039's been getting better lately. From what we know about the stock in the past, it seems to get a boost not only at CES but also in the days that follow. Even though Jensen Huang has more to say, this is a big repeat. I was also going to ask, end quote, is this the breakout or the breakdown, end quote, and hashtag 039, am not sure. The market might be speaking with its hands right now, meaning that stock went up a lot in a short amount of time after not going up at all for a while. Perhaps this is another chance to breathe. I think it and hashtag 039's hard because, you know, people trade long before you would think there would be profit taking or it and hashtag 039's possible that the CES bump happened in the 10 days before CES instead of the 3 days after, as people are used to seeing it happen. If you look at the price movement, it and hashtag 039's really hard to figure out what the 100 million people who are buying and selling the stock for their own investment portfolios are thinking. I think it and hashtag 039's important to note that this keynote speech didn't and hashtag 039 he say anything that made you think that innovation or demand were slowing down or that there were any bumps in the road in this story. If anything, we and hashtag 039 re now thinking about 26 and 27 and all the actual AI news that will be coming out then. This is the year of AI that acts on its own. That seems pretty clear. In Silicon Valley, everyone agrees that this is the item that people will buy now and pay a lot of money for. The robotics stuff comes a year or so after that. Jensen Huang, on the other hand, waved the red flag. He and hashtag 039's not following the rules. The things he and hashtag 039's showing people are the things they and hashtag 039'll be selling in 18 months. Also, if you and hashtag 039've been investing in NVIDIA for a long time like I have, it and hashtag 039's now your biggest position because of how much it and hashtag 039's gone up. I could deal with 5% drops. Something about them doesn't and hashtag 039t bother me. Silid, I mean. The price is down 4.5% in the last couple of months, right? There and hashtag 039's not much going on with it right now. It and hashtag 039's up 5.5% just this month. Today is the transfer day. To answer Josh and hashtag 039's question, Jensen Huang didn't and hashtag 039t say there was a problem last night on stage. Not at all, my brother. In fact, it was the opposite. Dan Ives. This is about what happened yesterday, a bunch of new AI technologies and PCs that will make their huge technology lead over the rest of the semi and big tech world even bigger. Goldman points out that the company can come up with new hardware and software ideas faster than anyone else in its field. Stiefel, the new information makes the company and hashtag 039's competitive moat even stronger. Great things have been said about this company over and over again, But you still have a stake in the business today. You think it has something to do with the fact that big tech is down because of the rates? Sure. I believe that some of these big growers are moving these days. Also, it and hashtag 039, interesting that it happened during the really good news. What do you mean by end quote, a company that is going back to gaming and robotics end quote? That company is still very good at AI. To sum up, I believe it will either be dead money or go up and down until earnings, which is where earnings for 26 and 27 will become very, very important. And I think the execution story will be very important because NVIDIA doesn't and hashtag 039 have as much recurring income as some of the other stocks this list.